If you operate in the high-stakes world of logistics, and especially trucking, you know that extreme volatility isn't really the occasional storm, it's just the weather.
It really is.
One single thing, a huge spike in diesel prices, a key client who suddenly stretches out payment terms, or, an unexpected mechanical failure, that can put crippling strain on an operation that's already running on razor-thin margins.
It's a very high-risk game. We're talking massive capital expenditure and just unavoidable continuous cost increases. And the moment those external pressures meet an internal weakness, the strain just develops so rapidly.
And the instinct is just to panic, right?
The instinct is always to panic, try to grab more volume, and just outrun the problem financially.
But the stack of sources you provided us, which focus heavily on the challenges that firms in the complex South African logistics market are facing, it introduces this vital structured alternative. So today we're diving deep into turnaround management, or TM.
Right.
And the most immediate compelling idea here is this. TM is not just for businesses that are already on life support.
Absolutely not. And that perception, the idea that TM is basically liquidation, that's the biggest hurdle to get over. Instead, this whole process is designed for the savvy operator who spots the early warning signs.
Those little indicators that control is slipping.
Exactly. They want to proactively regain stability and command before the business hits that point of no return.
So here's our mission today. You've given us the blueprints for financial stabilization in high-risk logistics, and we're going to unpack what turnaround management is, why this structured discipline is so crucial in these tight margin environments, and what practical, hands-on steps are involved in moving a business from stress back to sustained, profitable health.
Think of it this way. TM is like the specialized surgical team you bring in when the family doctor diagnoses something chronic and structural.
Yeah.
It's hands-on, it's data-driven, and it's highly goal-focused.
Okay.
It's designed specifically to stabilize, fix, and restore performance under pressure. It's really the opposite of managing by gut feeling or just hoping things get better.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little. If TM is about stabilizing a fleet operation, what are the core immediate areas it targets? Because if I'm a fleet owner, I might just think, I need to cut costs and get better rates.
And that's a common thought.
How does the TM approach differ?
It's different because it starts with diagnosis and sequencing. We can really boil the focus down to three interconnected areas for a logistics operation. The first and the most immediate is cash flow stability.
Okay.
It sounds simple, but you have to know precisely where your money is coming from and where it is leaking out, almost hour by hour.
And the second pillar?
Intense cost clarity and profitability. And this goes way beyond basic accounting. It's about understanding the true economic contribution of every single asset, every route, every client.
So you know which trucks are actually making you money.
You need to know which ones are performing and which are basically acting as economic anchors, dragging you down.
Which brings us to the third pillar, and I guess this is one that, well, it probably gets neglected when stress is high.
It does.
Operational discipline and decision-making. I imagine when you're just fighting fires, decisions get really reactive.
That's exactly it. They do. Stress forces operators into these short-sighted and usually very expensive decisions.
Like taking a bad rate just to cover payroll.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Or skipping preventative maintenance to keep a truck on the road. TM restores the strategic framework so that every single decision, from routing to buying a new truck, actively supports the recovery.
That distinction between TM and the sort of quick fix is so important. I think a lot of operators, out of desperation, they look for that shot of new volume, thinking they can just use revenue to paper over a net loss.
And that is often the fastest way to accelerate a collapse. I mean, if you're losing money on every kilometer you drive,
driving more kilometers just makes you lose money faster.
It just accelerates how quickly you run out of cash.
Yeah.
The TM process forces you to slow down just enough to diagnose the root cause, the structural fault, before you go chasing volume.
Stop the bleeding first.
Stop the bleeding, restore internal confidence, and then, only then, do you pursue sustainable, profitable growth.
Let's talk about that pressure cooker environment that makes this so necessary. You focused our deep dive on the South African logistics environment. Why is that specific context such a powerful case study for turnaround management?
Because it sort of overlays the global logistics pressures with these intense localized infrastructural hurdles. I mean, yes, they face global challenges like high fuel prices.
Yeah, everyone does.
But the sources highlight these unique pressures that just compress margins to almost nothing. For example, they have to navigate the effects of load shedding.
And for our listeners who might not know that term, can you just quickly clarify what that means operationally?
Absolutely. Load shedding basically means structured scheduled power outages, rolling blackouts. The national grid implements them to prevent a total collapse.
So it's not just an inconvenience.
Oh, not at all.
Yeah.
It affects everything. Your back office planning, depot security, scheduling maintenance, even just drivers getting through a city because the traffic lights are out. It introduces this systemic unpredictability into everything.
And on the financial side, it's compounded by long payment terms from big clients. You might have to wait 60, 90, I think one source said even 120 days for payment.
Precisely. While your input costs, fuel, wages, tires, are immediate, they're continuous. It just creates this massive cash flow lag.
And at the same time, maintenance and consumable costs like tires are just going up and up.
Relentlessly. So there's this immense pressure to keep those really expensive assets, the trucks moving at all costs, even if the margin on a specific job is zero or, even negative.
That paints a really vivid picture of a high-stress operating model. So if a business is running under that kind of strain, what are those subtle signals that come before a full-blown crisis? Because you can't wait for the bank to call.
No, you have to spot it internally. And the signs are subtle because they often just feel like normal business pressures, but they're constant. The first signal is that perpetual rolling overdraft.
Okay.
You might clear it one week, but it's immediately used up the next. It never truly hits a zero balance for very long. You're just paying punitive interest to function.
So that constant reliance on borrowed operating cash is a flashing light, even if you're technically current with the bank.
Yes. And another key signal is when your payment priorities start to shift. You start delaying payments to your trusted, long-standing suppliers.
The tire fitters, the parts dealers.
Right, because you have to prioritize fuel and payroll. And those relationships are key, so damaging them shows that your cash flow decisions are being made out of pure necessity, not strategy.
And the sources also emphasize that shift from strategic planning to just tactical survival.
Correct. Decisions shift from being planned over quarters like where should we invest next year to being made week to week based on which invoice clears tomorrow. You just lose the mental bandwidth for foresight.
And what's the most insidious signal?
It's the disconnect between activity and reward. You're driving more kilometers, you're busier than ever, but there's less and less money left in the bank at the end of the month.
That's the financial paradox of failure, isn't it? High turnover masking that you're actually insolvent.
Exactly.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture for any listener, no matter their industry, TM is really about having the discipline to respond to these quiet signals before they turn into a full-blown emergency.
It's the business equivalent of recognizing prediabetes before it becomes full-blown diabetes. It's an intervention based on data, not desperation.
That leads us right into the crucial question then. When should a business owner stop trying to fix it themselves and actually seek out turnaround management support? What are the practical indicators that the problem is structural, not just cyclical?
You should be looking for TM when those signs of a structural breakdown are evident and permanent. Number one, cash flow feels permanently tight, even when you're in what should be a busy season.
Right. A tough month is normal. A tough year when you're flat out busy is a structural failure.
That's it. And the second indicator you mentioned, that breakdown between profit and turnover. If you hit a new sales record, but the money still isn't there, the business model itself is the problem.
And I imagine for logistics, the most telling sign is just uncertainty about your own assets.
Absolutely. If you cannot definitively answer the question, which specific trucks, which routes, and which clients are actually contributing to profit and which are losing you money, you are operating completely in the dark.
Your decisions are based on hope, not facts.
Hopeful assumptions, yes. And let's not ignore the human element here. The sources highlight this. Stress and pressure start to affect your decision-making. You're just too mentally exhausted to evaluate complex risk, and that leads to compounded problems.
Or worse, risky expansion built on a weak foundation.
And that kind of growth is just cancer to a vulnerable business. It's not sustainable at all. This is where the practical, hands-on steps of TM come into play, and the focus is on achieving clarity, not adding complexity.
So let's dig into the how. When a TM professional comes in, what does achieving that operational clarity actually look like? How do they get the data the existing team couldn't get?
It starts with a really aggressive forensic review of cash, not just the bank statement, but a detailed mapping of cash flow. Where are the timing differences between a payment being due and when it's received? And crucially, where are the leaks?
Leaks? Like what?
Are late payment penalties eroding your profitability? Is your working capital just tied up inefficiently? Things like that.
And then we move to the cost clarity you mentioned, which sounds simple, cost per kilometer. But I imagine for a fleet owner, getting that true number is actually incredibly complex. It's not just fuel divided by distance, is it?
Far from it. That's the mistake most struggling companies make. They fail to accurately integrate their fixed and variable costs. Fuel is variable, sure, but you also have fixed costs like insurance, financing payments, licensing.
That need to be spread across the running kilometers.
Exactly, amortized. Then you have the gray areas, maintenance, tires, driver wages, which all fluctuate. A true calculation requires granular insight into costs per asset, per route profile, long haul versus urban delivery, for instance, and even per driver.
Factoring in things like efficiency and idling time.
All of it. The goal is to pinpoint exactly where those assets are underperforming and where avoidable losses have just become normalized.
That's the operational review. You identify and eliminate the inefficient assets that are dragging down the whole fleet's average profitability.
Then comes the really critical contract and rate assessment. Are your current rates sustainable, or are you essentially subsidizing your client's logistics needs? TM forces you to make objective decisions about dropping unprofitable work,
Even if it hurts your total volume temporarily.
even if it hurts. And finally, you implement decision discipline. You make sure every choice, from renewing a lease to hiring a mechanic, is measured against the recovery plan.
So the outcome of all this is a clear, actionable plan.
Yes. And what the source material makes so clear is the immediate psychological benefit. When you go from operating by guesswork to operating with data, decision-making becomes calmer, faster, and much more confident. You regain command of the ship, even if the storm outside hasn't completely stopped.
And that brings us to the final, and I think crucial segment, the psychology of control. We need to tackle that initial misconception head on, the idea that asking for turnaround management support is a sign of failure.
It's the exact opposite. Seeking external structured support is probably the most proactive business decision an owner can make. It means you value the long-term sustainability of the operation, the jobs it creates, and the assets you've built, enough to protect them aggressively.
In fact, the research suggests that many strong, highly successful transport businesses have gone through structured turnaround phases. The difference is their timing.
They acted early. They prevented the crisis mode. It's all about replacing fear with a framework. This structured approach gives immediate benefits that go beyond the spreadsheet. It gives the owner back crucial control over their finances.
And it rebuilds fundamental confidence.
Confidence in their ability to make high-stakes, rational decisions.
Yes, and by stabilizing the core business, you protect your assets and, crucially, your reputation with suppliers and financiers because you're showing you're willing to address the difficult truths.
And that stability, that's what creates the foundation for genuinely profitable growth. It moves the business away from risky expansion, chasing volume just to pay bills, and towards strategic, margin-focused growth built on a solid understanding of cost. TM replaces that crushing stress and guesswork with transparent insight and clear direction.
So if your business feels heavier than it should, financially, operationally, or even just mentally, that feeling isn't a coincidence. It's a signal. And ignoring it is the biggest risk you can take in a high-stakes industry like logistics.
Turnaround management is fundamentally a reset button. It is not about shutting down. It's about rebuilding and moving forward with objective clarity. And the core strategy, always, is to focus inward first, on structure, on clarity, on control, before pinning all your hopes on winning that next big external contract.
And this leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to consider as you look at your own operations.
If your business currently feels unclear, or if you feel you lack that granular cost control we talked about, ask yourself this: how much are you relying on future unpredictable external contracts or some general market recovery to solve what are actually current internal structural problems? What specific tangible action can you take today to clarify those internal structures? Because focusing on internal clarity over external hope, that's the key difference between perpetual struggle and long-term sustainability.